Kendra hissed in a loud whisper. What? Just come here. Seth boosted himself out of the pool and paddled over to Kendra, arms folded. He stared at the cloud of life whirling above the mirror. What's their deal? I don't know, she replied. Do insects like mirrors? Well, these ones do. Look at the red and white butterfly. It's enormous. Same with that dragonfly, Seth pointed out. I wish I had a camera. I dare you to go get the mirror. Seth shrugged. Sure. He trotted over to the table, grabbed the mirror by the handle, dashed to the pool, and dove in. Some of the insects scattered instantly. The majority drifted in the direction Seth had gone, but dispersed before reaching the pool. Seth surfaced. Any bees after me? Get the mirror out of the water. You'll ruin it. Settle down. It's fine, he said, stroking over to the side. Give it to me. She took the mirror from him and wiped it with her dry towel. It looked undamaged. Let's try an experiment. Thanks. Were you the one that did that, Mr. Grumio? You really have to interrupt my story time right now? Anyways, okay. You know, I never thought I'd have to experience that. Guys, I think I'm famous. I'm getting haters and weirdos. That, like, means I'm famous, right? Like, I've made it. I've made it. I have trolls. I have trolls and haters, guys. I've officially made it. Anywho. Why is bro interrupting my story time with bullshit? You know what I mean? Okay. Shall we continue? Kendra placed the mirror face up on a lounge chair and backed away. Think they'll come back? We'll see. Kendra and Seth sat down at the table not far from the lounge chair. After less than a minute, a hummingbird glided over to the mirror and hovered above it. Soon it was joined by a few butterflies. A bumblebee alighted on the face. Before long, another swarm of small winged creatures crowded the mirror. Go turn the mirror face down, Kendra said. I want to see whether they like the reflection of the mirror or the mirror itself. Seth crept toward the mirror. The little animals took no apparent notice of his approach. He reached forward, slowly flipped the mirror over, and then retreated to the table. The butterflies and bees that had landed on the mirror took flight when it was overturned, but only a few of the winged creatures flew away. Most of the swarm lingered. A pair of butterflies and a dragonfly landed on the lounge chair at the edge of the mirror. Taking flight, they flipped the mirror over, nearly sliding it off the chair in the process. With the reflective surface showing again, the swarms pressed close. Several of the creatures landed on the face. Did you see that? Kendra asked. That was weird, Seth said. How could they be strong enough to lift it? I mean, there was a few of them. Want me to flip it again? No, I'm scared the mirror will fall off and break. Okay. In a second, I might want to change into a hoodie or something. I'm in jeans, guys. This is a little uncomfy. I'm gonna finish this chapter and then probably go on my BRB screen for 2 seconds so I can change clothes. Okay, are we ready? Okay, he draped his towel over his shoulder. I'm going to go change. Would you like to take the mirror? Fine, but I'm running. I don't want to get stung. Seth moved towards the mirror slowly, snatched it, and ran off into the garden towards the house. Part of the swarm gave lazy pursuit before scattering. Kendra wrapped the towel around her waist, picked up the sunblock Seth had left behind, and started towards the house. When Kendra reached the attic playroom, Seth was dressed in jeans and a long-sleeved camouflage shirt. He picked up the cereal box that served as his emergency survival kit and headed for the door. Where are you going? None of your business, unless you want to come. How will I know whether I want to come if you don't tell me where you're going? Seth gave her a measuring stare. Promise to keep it a secret? Let me guess. Into the woods? Want to come? You'll get Lyme disease, Kendra warned. Whatever. Ticks are everywhere. Same with poison ivy. If people let that stop them, nobody would ever go anywhere. But Grandpa Sorensen doesn't want us in the woods, she protested. Grandpa isn't going to be around all day. Nobody will know unless you blab. Don't do this. Grandpa has been nice to us. We should obey him. You're about as brave as a bucket of sand. What's so brave about disobeying Grandpa? So, you're not coming? Kendra hesitated. No. Will you tell on me? If they ask where you are. I won't be long. Seth walked out the door. She heard him tromp down the stairs. Kendra crossed to the nightstand. The handheld mirror rested on it, beside the ring with the 3 tiny keys. She had spent a long time the night before trying to find what the keys fit. The biggest key opened a jewelry box in the dresser that was full of costume jewelry. Fake diamond necklaces, pearl earrings, emerald pendants, sapphire rings, and ruby bracelets. She had not yet discovered what the other 2 opened. She picked up the keys. They were all small. The smallest was no longer than a thumbtack. Where could she find such a minuscule keyhole? The night before, she had spent most of her time on drawers and toy chests. Some of the drawers had keyholes, but they were all already unlocked, and the keys did not fit, same with the toy chests. The Victorian dollhouse caught her attention. What better place to find tiny keyholes than inside a tiny little house? She unlatched the clasps and opened it, revealing 2 floors and several rooms full of miniature furniture. 5 doll people lived in the house, a father, a mother, a son, a daughter, and a baby. The detail was extraordinary. The beds had quilts, blankets, sheets, and pillows. The couches had removable cushions. The knobs in the bathtub really turned. Closets had clothes hanging inside. The dollhouse's master bedroom made Kendra suspicious. It had a disproportionately large keyhole in the center. Kendra inserted the tiniest key and turned it. The door swung open. Inside was something wrapped in gold foil. Opening it, she saw was a piece of chocolate shaped like a rosebud. Behind the chocolate, she found a small golden key. She added it to the key ring with the other keys. The golden key was larger than the key that opened the door, but smaller than the key that opened the jewelry box. Kendra took a bite of the chocolate rosebud. It was soft and melted in her mouth. It was the richest, creamiest chocolate she had ever tasted. She finished it in 3 more bites, savoring each mouthful. Kendra continued scouring the tiny house, investigating every piece of furniture, searching every closet, checking behind every miniature painting on the walls. Finding no more keyholes, she closed the dollhouse and fastened the clasps. Scanning the room, Kendra decided where to look next. 1 key left, maybe 2 if the golden key also opened something. She had been through most of the items in the toy chest, but she could always double-check. She had searched through drawers and nightstands, dressers, and wardrobes thoroughly, as well as the knickknacks on the bookshelves. There could be keyholes in unlikely places like under the clothes of a doll or behind a bedpost. Kendra ended up beside the telescope. Improbable as it seemed, she checked it for keyholes. Nothing. Maybe she could use a telescope to locate Seth. Opening the window, she noticed Dale walking along the lawn at the outskirts of the woods. He was carrying something in both hands, but his back turned to her, impeding a view of what he held. He stooped and set it down behind a low hedge, which continued to prevent her from seeing the object. Dale walked off at a brisk pace, glancing around as if to ensure nobody was spying, and soon passed out of view. Curious, Kendra rushed downstairs and out the back door. Dale was nowhere in sight. She trotted across the lawn to the low hedge beneath the attic window. Grass continued for about 6 feet beyond the hedge before stopping abruptly at the perimeter of the forest. On the grass behind the hedge rested a large pie tin full of milk. An iridescent hummingbird hung suspended over the pie tin, wings a faint blur. Several butterflies flitted around the hummingbird. Occasionally, one would descend and splash in the milk. The hummingbird flew away, and a dragonfly approached. It was a smaller crowd than the mirror had attracted, but there was much more activity than Kendra would have expected around a small pool of milk. She watched as a variety of tiny winged animals came and went, feeding from the pie tin. Did butterflies drink milk? Did dragonflies? Apparently so. It was not long before the level of milk in the pie tin had markedly fallen. Kendra looked up at the attic. It had only 2 windows, both facing the same side of the house. She visualized the room behind those gabled windows and suddenly realized the playroom consumed only half of the space the attic should fill. Abandoning the tin of milk, she walked around to the opposite side of the house. On the far side was a second pair of attic windows. She was right. There was another half to the attic, but she knew of no other stairway granting access to the uppermost story, which meant that there might be some sort of secret passage in the playroom. Maybe the final key unlocked it. Just as she decided to return to the attic and search for a hidden door, Kendra noticed Dale coming from the direction of the barn with another pie tin. She hurried toward him. When he saw her coming, he looked temporarily uncomfortable, then put on a big smile. "What are you doing?" Kendra asked. "Just taking some milk to the house," he replied, changing direction a bit. He had been heading towards the woods. "Really? Why'd you leave that other milk behind the hedge?" "Other milk?" He could not have looked more guilty. "Just taking some milk over there." "Yeah, the butterflies were drinking it." Dale was no longer walking. He regarded Kendra shrewdly. I'm tripping. Guys, I'm tripping. Can you keep a secret? Sure. Dale looked around as if someone might be watching. We have a few milking cows. They make plenty of milk, so I put some of the excess out for the insects. Keeps the garden lively. Why is that a secret? I'm not sure your grandfather would approve. Never asked permission. He might consider it wasteful. Seems like a good idea to me. I noticed all the different kinds of butterflies in your garden, more than I've ever seen, plus all the hummingbirds. He nodded. I like it. Adds to the atmosphere. So, you weren't taking that milk to the house? No, no. This milk hasn't been pasteurized, full of bacteria. You could catch all sorts of diseases, not fit for people. Insects, on the other hand, they seem to like it best this way. You won't spoil my secret? I'll keep quiet. Good girl, he said with a conspiratorial wink. Where are you putting that one? Over there. He jerked his head towards the woods. I set a few on the border of the yard every day. Does it spoil? I don't leave it out long enough. Some days the insects consume all the milk before I collect the pans. Thirsty critters. See you later, Dale. You seen your brother hereabout? I think he's in the house. That so? She shrugged. Maybe. She turned and started towards the house. She glanced back as she mounted the stairs to the rear porch. Dale was placing the milk behind a small, round bush. Alright, I just hit chapter 3. So give me just 1 second, because I want to switch into, like, a hoodie and sweatpants. It's, like, comfy hours, and, like, I'm not comfy for comfy hours, you know what I mean? I need to get a little comfier. So, if you don't mind giving me just 1 moment, I'm going to just quickly change, and then we'll get right back to story time. 1 second. Okay. Hello, dears. I am back. You still haven't even, on my screen, it's so delayed, I haven't even left yet. I'm still reading when I look over. Okay. I grabbed a pancake. You know. Just for funsies. Grabbed a little pancake. Okay. Let's continue, shall we? How are you guys liking story time so far? I know it's gonna send super late in the chat, but I will still reply to any of you who are sending messages. So don't feel like you can't talk or give opinions and feedback. And I wasn't kidding, by the way. I will happily make this a regular thing if it's actually something people want. You guys are all still here, so clearly I didn't run you off. Okay, before I get going, you know, take a little bite. Can't wait to see you react to me eating a pancake with whipped cream again in 5 minutes when it goes through. Okay. Onwards and upwards. Sorry. Okay. Chapter 3. The Ivy Shack. Seth pressed through dense undergrowth until he reached a faint crooked path, the kind made by animals. Nearby stood a squat, gnarled tree with thorny leaves and black bark. Seth examined his sleeves for ticks, scrutinizing the camouflage pattern. So far, he had not seen a single tick. Of course, it would probably be the ticks he had failed to see that would have gotten him. He'd hoped the insect repellent he had sprayed on was helping. Stooping, he collected rocks and built a small pyramid to mark the point where he had intersected the path. Finding his way back would probably be no problem, but better safe than sorry. If he took too long, Grandpa might figure out he had disobeyed orders. Rummaging in his cereal box, Seth withdrew a compass. Thank you for the raid, Mikey. Hello, welcome, welcome. Welcome in. We're just reading because my stream delay is too bad, as you will soon find out. My stream delay is too bad to do anything else, so I am just reading to chat tonight. If that's something you're interested in, feel free to hang out for the vibes. Otherwise, if you must raid and run, please take care of yourself and have a good time. This is a long delay now. I just wanted to say you handle these tech issues like a pro with creativity. Thank you, I appreciate it. Well, I'm glad you're having a good time. I didn't really expect you to actually like this, so I'm a little shocked that you guys are like, ooh, story time. It's very cute. You guys are adorable. Okay. Continuing. The animal track ran northeast. He had set off on an easterly course, but the undergrowth had grown denser as he progressed. A faint trail was a good excuse to veer slightly off course. It would be much easier going than trying to hack his way through shrubbery with a pocket knife. He wished he owned a machete. Seth followed the trail. The tall trees stood fairly close together, diffusing the sunlight into a greenish glow laced with shadows. Seth imagined that the forest would be black as a cave after nightfall. Something rustled in the bushes. He paused, removing a small pair of plastic binoculars from his cereal box. Scanning the area, he spotted nothing of interest. He proceeded along the trail until an animal emerged from undergrowth onto the path not 20 feet ahead. It was a round, bristly creature, no taller than his knees, a porcupine. The animal started down the path in his direction with complete confidence. Seth froze. The porcupine was close enough that he could discern the individual quills, slender and sharp. As the animal trundled toward him, Seth backed away. Weren't animals supposed to flee from humans? Maybe it had rabies, or maybe it just hadn't seen him. After all, he was wearing a camouflage shirt. Seth spread his arms wide, stomped a foot, and growled. The porcupine looked up, twitched its nose, and then turned from the path. Seth listened as it pushed through foliage away from the trail. He took a deep breath. He had been really scared for a minute there. He could almost feel the quills pricking through his jeans into his leg. It would be pretty hard to conceal his excursion into the woods if he came home looking like a pincushion. Though he dreaded admitting it, he wished Kendra had come. The porcupine probably would have made her scream, and her fear would have increased by his bravery. He could have made fun of her, instead of feeling frightened himself. He had never seen a porcupine in the wild before. He was surprised how exposed he felt staring at all those pointy quills. What if he stepped on one on the undergrowth? He looked around. He had come a long way. Of course, finding his way back would be no trick. He just needed to backtrack along the same trail and then head west. But if he turned for home now, he might never make it back this way again. Seth continued along the trail. Some of the trees had moss and lichen growing on them. A few had ivy twisting around their bases. The path forked. Checking his compass, Seth saw that one path went northwest and the other one went east. Staying with his theme, he turned east. There began to be more space between the trees, and the shrubs grew closer to the ground. Soon, he could see much farther in all directions, and the forest became a little bit brighter. To one side of the path, at the limit of his sight, he noticed something abnormal. It looked like a large square of ivy hidden among the trees. The whole point of exploring the woods was to find strange things, so he left the path and walked towards the ivy square. The dense undergrowth came up to his shins, grasping at his ankles with every step. As he tromped towards the square, he realized it was a structure completely overgrown with ivy. It appeared to be a big shed. He stopped and looked more closely. The ivy was thick enough that he could not tell what the shade was made of. He could only see leafy vines. He walked around the structure. On the far side, a door stood open. Seth almost cried out when he peered inside. The shed was actually a shack constructed around a large tree stump. Beside the stump, dressed in crude rags, sat a wiry old woman, gnawing at a knot in a bristly rope. Shriveled with age, she clutched the rope in her bony hands with knobby knuckles. Her long white hair was matted and had a sickly yellowish tint. One of her filmy eyes was terribly bloodshot. She was missing teeth, and there was blood on the knot from where she was chewing, apparently from her gums. Her pale arms, bare almost to the shoulder, were thin and wrinkled, with faint blue veins and purple scabs. When the woman saw Seth, she dropped the rope immediately, wiping pink saliva from the corners of her meager lips. Supporting herself against the stub, she stood up. He noticed her long feet, the color of ivory peppered with insect bites. Her gray toenails looked thick with fungus. "Hail, young master, what brings you to my home?" Her voice was incongruently melodious and smooth. For a moment, Seth could only stare. Even as bent and crooked as she was, the woman was tall. She smelled bad. "You live out here?" he finally said. "I do. Care to come inside?" "Probably not. Just out for a walk." The woman narrowed her eyes. "Strange place for a boy to walk alone." "I like exploring. My grandpa owns this land." "Owns it, you say? Does he know you're here?" asked Seth. "Depends who he is." "Stan Sorensen." She grinned. "He knows." The rope she had chewed lay on the dirt floor. It had one other knot besides the one she had been gnawing. "Why were you biting the rope?" Seth asked. She eyed him suspiciously. "I don't care for knots." "Are you a hermit?" "You could say that. Come inside and I'll brew some tea." "I'd better not." She looked down at her hands. "I must look frightful. Let me show you something." She turned and crouched behind the stump. A rat ventured a few steps out of a hole in the corner of a shack. When she came back from behind the stump, the rat hid. The old woman sat with her back to the stump. She held a little wooden puppet about 9 inches high. It looked primitive, made entirely of dark wood, with no other clothes or painted features, just a basic human figure with tiny gold hooks serving as joints. The puppet had a stick in its back. The woman set a paddle on her lap. She began making the puppet dance by bobbing the stick and tapping the paddle. There was music There was a musical regularity to the rhythm. "What is that thing?" Seth asked. "A limberjack," she replied. "Where's his axe?" "Not a lumberjack, a limberjack. A clog doll. A jigger." "Dancing Dan. Shuffling Sam. I call him Mendigo. He keeps me company. Come inside and I'll let you give it a try." "I better not," he said again. "I don't see how you could live out here like this and not be crazy." "Sometimes good people grow weary of society." She sounded a little annoyed. "You happened upon me by accident, out exploring." "Actually, I'm selling candy bars for my soccer team. It's a good cause." She stared at him. "I have my best luck in the rich neighborhoods." She kept staring. "That was a joke." "I'm kidding." Her voice became stern. "You are an impudent young man." "And you live in a tree stump." She gave him a measuring glance. "Very well, my arrogant young adventurer. Why not test your courage? Every explorer deserves a chance to prove his mettle." The old woman withdrew into the shack and crouched behind the stump again. She returned to the doorway, holding a crude, narrow box made of splintered wood, wire, and long jutting nails. "What's that?" "Place your hand inside the box to prove your valor and earn a reward." "I'd rather play with the creepy puppet." "Just reach inside and touch the back of the box." She shook it, and it rattled a bit. The box was long enough that he'd have to reach into his elbow in order to touch the back. "Are you a witch?" "A man with a brave tongue should support his words with courageous actions." "This seems like something a witch would do." "Thank you for the bonk." "You want me to share the pancake? Do you want a bite?" "Stand by your loose words, young man, or you may not have a pleasant journey home." Seth backed away, watching her closely. "I better get going. Have fun eating your rope." Seth backed away, watching her closely. She clucked her tongue. Such insolence. Her voice remained soothing and calm, but now held a menacing undertone. "Why not step inside and have some tea?" "Next time." Seth moved around the shack, not taking his eyes from the ragged woman in the doorway. She made no move to pursue him. Before he moved out of her sight, the woman raised an arthritic hand with the middle fingers crossed and the others bent awkwardly. Eyes half shut, she appeared to be murmuring something. Then she was out of view. On the far side of the shack, Seth plunged through the tangled undergrowth back to the path, glancing over his shoulder all the way. The woman was not chasing him. Just looking back at the ivy-covered shack made him shiver. The old hag looked so wretched and smelled so foul, there was no way he was sticking his hand in her weird box. After she had offered the challenge, all he could think about was learning in school how shark teeth angled inward so fish could swim in but not out. He imagined the homemade box was probably full of nails or broken glass set at cruel angles for the similar purpose. Even though the woman was not following him, Seth felt unsafe. Compass in hand, he hurried along the path towards home. Without warning, something struck him on the ear, barely hard enough to sting. A pebble the size of a thimble dropped to the path at his feet. Seth whirled. Somebody had thrown a little stone at him, but he saw nobody. Could it be the old woman? Could she be stealthily following him? She probably knew the woods really well. Another small object bounced off the back of his neck. It was not as hard or heavy as a stone. Turning, he saw another acorn whistling at him, and he ducked. The acorns and pebble had come from opposite sides of the path. What was going on? From above came the sound of wood splitting, and a huge limb fell across the path behind him, a few leaves and twigs swishing against him as it passed. If Seth had been standing 2 or 3 yards back along the path, a branch thicker than his leg would have clubbed him on the head. One look at the heavy limb, and Seth took off down the path at full sprint. He seemed to hear rustling sounds coming from the shrubbery on either side of the scant trail, but did not slow down to investigate. Something caught a firm hold on his ankle, sending him tumbling to the ground. Sprawled on his belly, a cut on one hand, dirt in his mouth, he heard something rustling through the foliage behind him, and a strange sound that was either laughter or running water. A dry branch snapped like a gunshot. Not looking back for fear of what he might see, Seth scrambled to his feet and dashed along the path. Whatever had tripped him had not been a root or a stone. It had felt like a strong cord stretched across the trail, a tripwire. He had noticed no such trap previously on the path, but there was no way the old woman could have done it, even if she had started running the moment he passed out of her view. Seth raced past the place where the trail forked and sprinted back the way he had come. He scanned the trail ahead for wires or other traps. His breathing became labored, but did not slow him down. The air felt hotter and more humid than it had all day. Sweat began to dampen his forehead and drip down the sides of his face. Seth remained alert for the little pyramid of rocks that would mark where he should leave the path. When he reached a little gnarled tree with the black bark and the thorny leaves, he halted. He remembered the tree. He had noticed it when he first intersected the path. Using the tree as a reference, he found the spot where he had built the pyramid of rocks, but the rocks were gone. Leaves crunched behind him off to one side of the trail. Seth glanced at his compass to confirm he was heading west and ran in the woods. He had walked this way at a leisurely pace, examining toadstools and unusual rocks as he went. Now he tore through the forest at full speed, undergrowth clawing at his legs, branches whipping against his face and chest. Finally, panting, the energy of his panic wearing thin, he glimpsed the house up ahead through the trees. The sound of pursuit had dwindled to nothing. As he stepped out into the yard under the sun, Seth wondered how much of what he had heard had actually been something chasing him, and how much had been invented by his flustered imagination. Oh, thank you for lurking, Mikey. I hope you enjoyed the story. The wall opposite the windows in the playroom held several rows of bookshelves. The door to the stairs was built into that wall, and one of the bulky, freestanding wardrobes was backed against it. Kendra held up a blue book with golden letters. The title was Journal of Secrets. The book was held shut by 3 sturdy clasps, each with a keyhole. The remaining key Grandpa Sorensen had given her fit in none of the keyholes, but the gold key fit into the bottom one, so one of the clasps was unlocked. She had found the book while searching in the bookshelves for a trigger to the secret passage. Using a stool, Kendra had reached even the higher shelves, but so far the search had been in vain. There was no signs of a secret door. When she noticed a locked book with an intriguing title, she had quit the search in order to test her keys. With the bottom clasp unlocked, Kendra tried to pry up the corner of the book and get a peek, but the cover was solid and the binding firm. She needed to find the other keys. She heard somebody stampeding up the stairs and knew it could only be one person. Hurriedly, she shelved the book and pocketed the keys. She did not want her nosy brother interfering with her puzzle. Seth charged through the door and slammed it behind him. He was flushed and breathing hard. Dirt smeared the knees of his jeans. His face was smudged with sweat and grime. "You should have come," he sighed, flopping out of the bed. "You're getting the bedspread filthy." "It was freaky," he said. "It was so cool." "What happened?" "I found this path in the woods and met this weird old lady who lived in a shack. I think she's a witch, a real one." "Whatever." He rolled over and looked at her. "I'm serious. You should have seen her. She was a mess." "So are you." "No, like all scabby and gross. She was biting an old rope. She tried to make me stick my hand in some box." "Did you?" "No way. I took off. But she chased me or something. She threw rocks at me and knocked down this big branch. It could have killed me." "You must be pretty bored." "I'm not lying. I'll ask Grandpa Sorensen if he has homeless people living in his woods," Kendra said. "No! Then he'll know I broke the rules." "Don't you think he'd want to know a witch built a shack on his property?" She acted like she knew him. "I went pretty far. Maybe I was off his property." "I doubt it. I think he owns everything for a long ways." Seth leaned back, placing his fingers behind his head. "You should have come visit her with me. I could find my way back." "Are you nuts? You just said she tried to kill you." "We should spy on her, find out what she's up to. If there really is a weird old lady living in the woods, you should tell Grandpa so he can call the police." Seth sat up. "Okay, never mind. I made it up. Feel better?" Kendra narrowed her eyes. "I found something else cool. Have you seen the treehouse?" "No. Want me to show you?" "Is it in the yard?" "Yes, on the edge." "Okay." Kendra followed Seth outside and across the lawn. Sure enough, in the corner of the yard opposite the barn, there was a light blue playhouse up in a thick tree. It was situated on the back side of the tree, making it hard to see from most of the yard. The paint was peeling a little, but the little house had shingles on the roof and curtains in the window. Boards had been nailed into the tree to form a ladder. Seth went up first. The rungs led up to a trapdoor which he pushed open. Kendra climbed up after him. Inside, the tree felt bigger than it looked like on the ground. There was a little table with 4 chairs. Pieces of a jigsaw puzzle spread out on the table. Only a couple had been fit together. "See? Not bad." "Not bad," Seth said. "I started that puzzle." "It's beautiful. You must be gifted." "I didn't work on it long." Did you even find the corners? No. That's the first thing you do. She sat down and started looking for the corner pieces. Seth took a seat and helped. You never liked puzzles, Kendra said. It's more fun doing them in a treehouse. If you say so. Seth found a corner piece and set it aside. Think Grandpa would let me move in here? You're a weirdo. I'd only need a sleeping bag, he said. You'd get freaked out once it was late. No way. The witch might come get you. Instead of responding, he started looking more intently for the other corner pieces. Kendra could tell the comment had gotten to him. She decided not to tease him any further. The fact that he seemed scared of the lady he had met in the woods legitimatized his story a lot. Seth had never scared easily. This was the kid who had jumped off the roof under the misguided assumption that a garbage bag would work like a parachute. The kid who had put the head of a live snake in his mouth on a dare. They found the corners and finished most of the perimeter of the puzzle by the time they heard Elena calling them for dinner. That's the end of chapter 3. I'm gonna take another bite of my pancake. Everybody cozy? This is one of my favorite sets of books. Out of 10 book. What do we think, guys? And there's 5 of them, guys. This is like my favorite set of books that I like remember all of. You guys cozy listening to book reading? I hope you're enjoying it. This is such an interesting experience. I never thought I'd ever do this. Never thought I'd be reading my chat a book. Chapter 4. The Hidden Pond. Rain pattered Wow, I'm doing great so far. Rain pattered endlessly against the roof. Kendra had never heard such a noisy downpour. Then again, she had never been in an attic during a rainstorm. There was something relaxing about the steady drumming, so constant that it almost became inaudible without ever decreasing in volume. Standing at the window beside the telescope, she watched the deluge. The rain fell straight and hard, There was no wind, just layer upon layer of streaking droplets blurring into a gray haze in the distance. The gutter below her was about to overflow. Seth sat on a stool in the corner, painting. Lena had been creating paint-by-numbers canvases for him, sketching them with expert speed, customizing each image to specifications. The current project is a dragon battling a knight on a horseback amid a fuming wasteland. Lena had outlined the images in considerable detail, including subtleties of light and shade, so that the finished products looked quite accomplished. She had taught Seth how to mix paint and given him samples, of which Hugh correctly responded to each number. For the current painting, she had incorporated more than 90 different shades. Kendra had rarely seen Seth demonstrate as much diligence as he did on the paintings. After a few brief lessons on how to apply the paint, including the purposes of different brushes and tools, he had already finished a large canvas of pirates sacking a town, and a smaller one of a snake charmer dividing from a striking cobra. Oh, diving. I can read. Diving away from a striking cobra. 2 impressive paintings in 3 days. He was an addict, and he was almost done with his latest project. Crossing to the bookshelf, Kendra ran a hand along the spines of the volumes. She had searched the room thoroughly and had yet to find the last keyhole, let alone a secret passage to the other side of the attic. Seth could be a pest, but now that he had become immersed in his painting, she was starting to miss him. Maybe Lena would outline a painting for her. Kendra had turned down her initial offer since it sounded childish, like coloring, but the finished products looked much less juvenile than Kendra had anticipated. Kendra opened the door and descended the stairs. The house was dim and quiet, the rainfall more distant as she left the attic behind. She walked along the hall and down the stairs to the main floor. The house seemed too quiet. All the lights were out despite the gloom. Lena? There was no answer. Kendra went through the living room, the dining room, and in the kitchen. No sign of the housekeeper. Had she left? Opening the door to the basement, Kendra peered down the steps into the darkness. The stairs were made of stone, as if leading to a dungeon. Lena, she called uncertainly. Surely the woman wasn't down there without any light. Kendra went back down the hall and slid open the door to the study. Having not yet entered this particular room, she first noticed the huge desk cluttered with books and papers. The massive head of a hairy boar with jutting tusks hung mounted on the wall. A collection of grotesque wooden masks rested on a shelf. Golfing trophies lined another. Plaques decorated the wood-paneled walls, along with a framed display of military medals and ribbons. There was a black and white picture of a much younger Grandpa Sorensen, showing off an enormous marlin. On the desk, inside a crystal sphere with a flat bottom, was an eerie replica of a human skull no bigger than her thumb. Kendra slid the study door closed. She tried the garage, the parlor, and the family room. Maybe Lena had run to the store. Kendra walked out to the back porch. Shielded from the rain by the overhang, she loved the fresh, damp scent of rainfall. It continued to come down hard, puddling around the garden. Where did the butterflies hide from such a downpour? Then she saw Lena. The housekeeper knelt in the mud beside a bush blossoming with large blue and white roses, absolutely soaked, apparently weeding. Her white hair was plastered to her head, and her housecoat was drenched. Lena? The housekeeper looked up, smiled, and waved. Kendra retrieved an umbrella from the hall closet and joined Lena in the garden. You're sopping, Kendra said. Lena rooted out a weed. It's a warm rain. I like being out in the weather. She stuffed the weed into a bulging garbage bag. You're gonna catch a cold. I don't often take ill. She paused to stare up at the clouds. It won't last much longer. Kendra tilted her umbrella back and gazed heavenward, leading skies in all directions. You think? Wait and see. The rain will pass within the hour. Your knees are all muddy. You think I've lost my marbles. The woman stood up and spread her arms wide, tilting her head back. Do you ever look up at the rain, Kendra? It feels like the sky is falling. Kendra tilted the umbrella back again. Millions of raindrops rushed toward her, some pelting her face and making her blink. Or like you're soaring up to the clouds, she said. I suppose I should get you inside before my unusual habits rub off. No, I didn't mean to disturb you. Back under the protection of the umbrella, Kendra wiped droplets from her forehead. I guess you don't want the umbrella. That would defeat the purpose. I'll be in shortly. Kendra returned to the house. She stole glances at Lena through a window. It was just so peculiar. She couldn't resist spying. Sometimes Lena was working, sometimes she was smelling a blossom or stroking its petals, and the rain kept falling. Hello, Shadow. Welcome back. My stream is delayed by like 5 minutes, so I can't do anything. Shadow, don't spam. Not that you can hear me. Oh my gosh. Shadow, I'm going to time you out. Don't spam in my chat. I don't care who you are, how long you've been here. Don't spam. Don't fill my chat with spam just because I'm not immediately responding to you. I have a pinned message that says it's delayed by like 5 minutes. So honestly, I think the timeout will come back before he even hears this. Don't spam in my chat. It's disrespectful. It's rude. It's rude. You were warned earlier. Don't do it. So get timed out for 10 minutes. Maybe you'll learn. Hi, Benji. Kendra was sitting on her bed, reading poems by Shel Silverstein, when the room suddenly brightened. The sun was out. Lena had been right about the rain. It had relented about 40 minutes after her prediction. The housekeeper had come inside, changed out of her wet clothes, and made sandwiches. Across the room, the painting of the knight charging the dragon was complete. Seth had gone outside an hour ago. Kendra was in a lazy mood. Just as Kendra returned her attention to the latest poem. Seth burst into the room, breathing hard. He wore only socks on his feet. His clothes were streaked with mud. You have to come see what I found in the woods. Another witch? No, way cooler. A hobo camp? I'm not gonna say it, you just have to come see. Does it involve hermits or lunatics? No people, he said. How far from the yard? Not far. We could get in trouble, besides, it's muddy out. Grandpa is hiding a beautiful park in the woods, Seth blurted. What? Asked Kendra. You have to come see it. Put on galoshes or something. Kendra closed the book. The sunlight came and went, depending on the shifting clouds. A soft breeze ruffled the foliage. The woods smelled mulchy. Scrambling over a damp, rotting log, Kendra shrieked when she saw a glistening white frog. Seth turned around. Awesome. Try? Disgusting. I've never seen a white frog, said Seth. He tried to grab it, but the frog took an enormous leap as he approached. Whoa, that thing flew. He checked the underbrush where the frog had landed, but found nothing. Hurry up, Kendra said, glancing back the way they had come. The house was no longer in sight. She could not shake the stick. She could not shake the sick, nervous feeling in her stomach. Unlike her little brother, Kendra was not a natural rule breaker. She was in all the accelerated classes at school, got almost perfect grades, kept her room tidy, and always practiced for her piano lesson. Seth, on the other hand, settled for lousy grades, routinely skipped his homework, and earned frequent detentions. Of course, he was also the one with all the friends, so maybe there was a method to his madness. What's the rush? He took the lead again, blazing a trail through the undergrowth. The longer we're gone, the more likely someone will notice we're missing. It isn't much further. See that hedge? It was not exactly a hedge, more like a tall barrier of unkept bushes. You call that a hedge? The park is on the far side. The wall of bushes extended as far as Kendra could see in either direction. How do we get around it? Through it. You'll see. They reached the bushes and Seth turned left, studying the leafy barricade as he went, occasionally squatting and checking closer. The interlocked bushes ranged from 10 to 12 feet tall, and they looked really thick. Okay, I think this is where I squirmed through. There was a deep indentation at the base where 2 bushes overlapped. Seth dropped to all fours and forced his way in. You're gonna have a billion ticks, Kendra predicted. They're all hiding from the rain, he replied with perfect confidence. Kendra got down and followed him. I don't think this is the same way you got through last time, he admitted. It's a little more cramped, but it should work. He was now slithering on his belly. This better be good. Kendra squirmed on elbows, eyes squinted. The damp ground felt cold. The droplets fell from the bush as she jostled it. Seth reached to the far side and stood up. She crawled through as well, her eyes widening as she got to her feet. Before her lay a pristine pond, a couple of 100 yards across with a small verdant island in the center. A series of elaborate gazebos surrounded the pool, interconnected by a whitewashed boardwalk. Flowering vines wound across the latticework of the impressive promenade. Promenade. Elegant swans glided on the water. Butterflies and hummingbirds wove and darted among the blossoms. On the far side of the pond, peacocks darted and preened. What in the world? Kendra gasped. Come on, Seth started across the lush, neatly mown lawn towards the nearest gazebo. Kendra looked back, understanding why Seth had called the disheveled barrier of bushes a hedge. On this side, the bushes were neatly trimmed. The hedgerow encompassed the entire area with a single arched entryway off to one side. Why didn't we come through the entryway? Kendra asked, trotting after her brother. Shortcut. Seth paused at the white steps leading up to the gazebo to plug a piece of fruit from an espalier. Try one. You should wash it, Kendra said. It just rained. He took a bite. It's so good. Kendra tried one. It was the sweetest nectarine she had ever tasted. Delicious. Together they mounted the steps of the extravagant pavilion. The wood railing was perfectly smooth. Although unshielded from the elements, all the woodwork appeared to be in flawless condition. No peeling paint, no cracks, no splinters. The gazebo was furnished with white wicker love seats and chairs. In some places, the vines had been woven into living wreaths and other fanciful patterns. A bright parrot sat on a high perch staring down at them. Look at the parrot, she exclaimed. Last time I saw some monkeys, he said. Little guys with long arms. They were swinging all over the place, and there was a goat. It ran away as soon as it saw me. There's a picture. Here's the picture. Seth took off, clomping down one of the boardwalks. Kendra followed more slowly, absorbing the scene. It looked like the setting of a fairy tale wedding. She counted 12 pavilions, each unique. One had a small white quay projecting into the pond. The little pier was connected to a floating shed that had to be a boathouse. Kendra strolled after Seth, whose ruckus was sending the swans drifting towards the far side of the lake, leaving V-shaped ripples in their wake. The sun broke through the clouds and gleamed on the water. Why would Grandpa Sorensen keep a place like this a secret? It was magnificent. Why go through all the trouble of maintaining it if not to enjoy it? Hundreds of people could gather here with room to spare. Kendra went to the gazebo with the pier and found that the boathouse was locked. It was not large. She guessed it held a few canoes or rowboats. Maybe Grandpa Sorensen would give them permission to paddle around the pond. No, she could not even tell him that they knew about this place. Was that why he had told them about the ticks and made rules against venturing in the woods to keep his little Eden hidden? Could he be so selfish and secretive? Kendra finished a complete lap around the pond, walking on clean wood planks the entire way. Across the pond, Seth yelled, and a small flock of cockatoos took flight. The sun retreated behind clouds. They needed to get back. Kendra told herself they could return later. Kendra was concerned when she cut into her steak. The middle was pink, almost right at the center. Grandpa Sorensen and Dale were already taking bites. Is my steak cooked? Kendra ventured. Of course it's cooked, Dale said, around a mouthful. It's pretty red in the middle. Only way to eat steak, Grandpa said, dabbing his mouth with a little napkin. Medium rare. Keeps it juicy and tender. If you cook it all the way through, you might as well eat shoe leather. Kendra glanced at Lena. Go ahead, dear, the woman urged. You won't get sick. I cooked it plenty. I like it, Seth said, chewing on a bite. Do we have any ketchup? Why would you go and ruin a perfectly good steak with ketchup? Dale moaned. You put it on your eggs, Lena reminded him, placing a bottle in front of Seth. That's different. Ketchup on onions and eggs is a necessity. That's sickening, Seth said, upending the bottle over his steak. Kendra took a bite of the garlic potatoes. They were tasty. Mustering her courage, she sampled the steak, bursting with flavorful seasoning. It was much easier to chew than other steaks she'd eaten. The steak is wonderful, she said. Thank you, dear, said Elena. They ate in silence for a few moments. Grandpa dabbed his mouth with his napkin again and cleared his throat. What do you suppose makes people so eager to break rules? Kendra felt a jolt of guilt. The question was addressed generally and hung there awaiting a response. When nobody answered, Grandpa continued. Is it simply the pleasure of disobedience? The thrill of rebellion? Kendra glanced at Seth. He stared at his place, picking at his potatoes. Were the rules unfair, Kendra? Was I being unreasonable? No. Did I leave you with nothing to do, Seth? No pool, no treehouse, no toys and hobbies? We had things to do. Then why did you two go into the woods? I warned you there would be consequences. Why are you hiding weird old ladies out in the forest? Seth blurted. Weird old ladies? Grandpa asked. Yeah, what about that? Grandpa nodded thoughtfully. She has a rotted old rope. You didn't blow on it? I didn't go near her. She was freaky. She came to me and asked if she could build a shack on my property. She promised to keep to herself. I saw no harm in it. You shouldn't go bothering her. Seth found your private retreat, Kendra said. He wanted me to see it. My curiosity got the better of me. Private retreat? Big pond, fancy boardwalk, parrots, swans, peacocks. Grandpa looked at Dale, speechless. Dale shrugged. I was hoping you'd take us out on a boat, Kendra said. Who said anything about a boat? Kendra rolled her eyes. I saw the boathouse, Grandpa. He tossed his hands up and shook his head. Kendra shot her fork down. Why would you let such a nice place go to waste? That is my business, Grandpa said. Yours was to obey my rules for your own protection. We're not afraid of ticks, Seth said. Grandpa folded his hands and lowered his eyes. I was not entirely honest about why you need to stay out of the woods. He lifted his gaze. On my land, I provide refuge to some dangerous animals, many of them endangered. This includes poisonous snakes, toads, spiders, and scorpions, along with bigger game. Wolves, apes, panthers. I use chemicals and other controls to keep them away from the yard, but the woods are extremely hazardous, particularly the island in the center of the lake. It is deliberately infested with inland tapions, also called fierce snakes, the deadliest serpent known to man. Why didn't you warn us? Kendra asked. My preserve is a secret. I have all the necessary licenses, but if my neighbors complained, those could be revoked. You must not tell a soul, not even your parents. We saw a white frog, Seth said breathlessly. Was that poisonous? Grandpa nodded. Quite lethal. In Central Africa, the indigenous people use them to fashion poison darts. Seth tried to catch it. Had he succeeded, Grandpa said gravely, he would be dead. Seth swallowed. I'll never go into the woods again. I trust you won't, Grandpa said. All the same, a rule is of no value unless the punishment is enforced. You will have to stay in your room for the rest of your stay. What? Seth said, but you lied to us. Being afraid of ticks is a lame reason to stay out of the woods. I just thought you were treating us like babies. You should have brought those concerns to me, Grandpa said. Was I unclear about the rules or the consequences? You were unclear about the reasons, Seth said. That is my right. I am your grandfather, and this is my property. I am your grandson. You should tell me the truth. You're not setting a very good example. Kendra tried not to laugh. Seth was in lawyer mode. He always tried to maneuver out of trouble with their parents. Sometimes he made some pretty good points. What do you think, Kendra? Grandpa asked. She had not expected him to solicit her opinion. She tried to collect her thoughts. Well, I agree that you didn't tell us the whole truth. No way would I have gone into the woods if I knew there would be dangerous animals. Me neither, Seth said. I made 2 simple rules, you understood them, and you broke them. Just because I chose not to share all my reasons for making the rules, you think you should escape punishment. Yes, Seth said, just this once. That doesn't sound fair to me, Grandpa said. Unless the punishments are enforced, rules lose all their power. But we won't do it again, Seth said. We promise. Don't lock us up from the house for 2 weeks. Don't blame me, Grandpa said. You locked yourself up by disregarding the rules. Kendra, what do you think would be fair? Maybe you could give us a reduced punishment as a warning, then the full punishment if we mess up again. Reduced punishment, Grandpa mused. So you still pay a price for your disobedience, but you get one more chance. I might be able to live with that. Seth? Better than the whole punishment. That settles it. I'll reduce your sentence to a single day. You will spend tomorrow confined to the attic. You can come down for meals, and you can use the bathroom, but that is all. Break any of my rules again, and you will not leave the attic until your parents come for you, for your own safety. Understood? Yes, sir, Kendra said. Seth nodded in agreement. Chapter 4. Over. For those of you who are joining late and don't know what the book is, it's called Fablehaven by Brandon Mull. There's 5 books in the series. This is the first book. It's a fantasy novel. We're getting a raid, except you're not going to see this for 5 whole minutes. Let me see if I can type to respond to the raid. I feel bad. There we go. Look at me. Trying. Hopefully those send to you guys. We take a little bite of my we shall continue. Okay. Rip the frames, by the way. Rip how freaking delayed it is. At this point, I think it's genuinely delayed by like 5 minutes. Just a heads up. When I go to end stream tonight, I'm probably just gonna sit in silence after I'm done, and I'll say my raid out. And I will sit in silence and wait until I see you actually get to hear it. That way you don't just think I just disappeared off the face of the earth. I'll probably read like 1 or 2 more chapters and then we might be done. We'll see what time it is. But I have work at noon, so I gotta go in like 1, 2 chapters. Especially if I have to wait for the delay. The delay seems pretty big right now, so we'll see where we're at in 1 to 2 chapters and then we'll go from there. Alright. Chapter 5. The Journal of Secrets. Did you ever notice the keyhole on the belly of the unicorn? Seth asked. He was lying on the floor beside the fanciful rocking horse, hands laced behind his head. Kendra looked up from her painting. She'd asked Lena to create paint by numbers to help her endure her incarceration. Kendra had wanted to paint the pavilions around the pond, and Lena had quickly sketched a scene with startling accuracy, as if the housekeeper had the place memorized. Seth declined to have another canvas prepped. Stuck in the attic or not, he was sick of painting. Keyhole? Weren't you looking for keyholes? Kendra got off her stool and crouched beside her brother. Sure enough, there was a tiny keyhole on the underside of the unicorn. Is my music just not musicking? Okay. You know what? We're gonna turn on a little bit of some cozy stuff. There you go. Tuck you into bed type music. She retrieved her keys from the nightstand drawer. The third key that Grandpa had given her did the trick. A small hatch swung open. Out fell several rose-shaped chocolates wrapped in gold foil, identical to the one she had found in the miniature house. What are those? Seth asked. Soap, Kendra said. Kendra reached up into the hatch and felt around inside the hollow rocking horse. She found a few more rosebud chocolates and a tiny golden key like the one from the house. The second key to the locked journal. They looked like candy, Seth said, snatching one of the 10 chocolates. Have one. They're perfumed. You'll smell pretty. He unwrapped it. Funny color for soap. Smells a lot like chocolate. He popped the whole thing in his mouth. His eyebrows shot up. Holy cow, this is good. Since you found the keyhole, how about we split them 50-50? She was a little worried he would eat them all otherwise. Sounds fair, he said, grabbing 4 more. Kendra placed her 5 chocolates in the nightstand drawer and retrieved the locked book. As she expected, the second gold key unlocked another clasp. Where could the third one be? She slapped her forehead. The first 2 had been hidden inside things the other keys had opened. The other one must be in the jewelry box. Opening the jewelry box, she rummaged through the compartments of the glittering pendants, brooches, and rings. Sure enough, disguised on a charm bracelet, she found a tiny golden key matching the other 2. She eagerly crossed the room and inserted the key into the final lock of the Journal of Secrets. The final clasp unlatched, and she opened the book. The first page was blank, so was the second. She thumbed quickly through the pages. The whole book was blank. Just an empty journal. Was Grandpa trying to encourage her to keep a diary? The whole game with the keys had been so sneaky. Maybe there was a trick to this as well. A hidden message. Disappearing ink or something? What was the trick with disappearing ink? Spray it with lemon juice and hold it up to a light? Something like that. There was another trick where you rubbed gently with a pencil and a message appeared. Or maybe something even more devious. Kendra surveyed the journal more carefully, hunting for clues. She held a few pages up against the window to see if light would betray hidden watermarks or other mysterious evidence. "What are you doing?" Seth asked. He had only one chocolate rosebud left. She would need to hide her chocolate someplace more secure than the nightstand drawer. She held up a final page. The light revealed nothing. "Practicing for my audition in the insane asylum?" "I bet you'll win first prize," he teased. "Unless you see your face," she retorted. Seth went over and scoped some kernels for Goldilocks. She'd laid another egg. He opened the cage to retrieve it and stroked her soft feathers. Kendra plopped down on the bed, leafing through the last pages. Suddenly she stopped. There was writing on one of the final pages, not really hidden, just tucked away in an unlikely spot. 3 words written near the binding, towards the bottom of an otherwise empty page. "Drink the milk." Folding the corner, she flipped through the remaining pages. Then she skimmed the rest of the pages from the start to make sure she hadn't missed any other similar messages. There was no other cryptic clues. Just drink the milk. Maybe soaking a page in milk would make words appear. She could soak one in the tins of milk Dale left out. Or that could be the milk the message was talking about. A challenge to drink cows I'm struggling. A challenge to drink unprocessed cow's milk? What purpose could that serve? To give her diarrhea? Dale had made a special point of warning her not to drink the milk. Of course, he had acted sort of peculiar about it. He could be hiding something. Drink the milk. All the hassle of finding holes for the keys Grandpa Sorensen gave her in order to uncover extra keys that fit a locked journal for that odd message? Was she missing something, or overanalyzing? The hunt might have been simply meant to occupy her time. "Do you think Mom and Dad would let us get a pet chicken?" Seth asked, holding the hen. "Probably right after they let us get a pet buffalo. Why don't you ever hold Goldilocks? She's really good." "Holding a live chicken sounds disgusting. Better than holding a dead one." "I'm fine just petting her." "You're missing out." He held the hen up to his face. "You're a good chicken, aren't you, Goldilocks?" The hen chuckled softly. "She's gonna peck your eyes out," Kendra warned. "No way. She's tame." Popping one of the rosebud chocolates in her mouth, she replaced the Journal of Secrets in the nightstand drawer and returned to her painting. She scowled. Between the gazebos, ponds, swans, the picture required more than 30 shades of white, gray, and silver. Using the sample hues Lena had given her, she prepared her next color. The sun was bright the next day. There was no evidence that it had ever rained or that it would ever rain again. Hummingbirds, butterflies, and bumblebees had returned to the yard. Lena gardened in the back beneath a large sun hat. Kendra sat in the shade on the back porch, no longer a prisoner in the attic. She felt better able to enjoy the fine weather. She wondered if the diverse butterflies she saw in the yard were among the species Grandpa Sorensen had imported. How did you keep a butterfly from leaving your property? The milk, perhaps? She passed the time with a game she had found on the shelf in the attic, a triangular board with 15 holes and 14 pegs. The object was to jump pegs like checkers until you only had one left, which sounded simple at first. That is like a core memory in my brain. I used to play that game constantly camping. I forget what it's called, but I know exactly what they're talking about. The problem was that in the process of jumping, certain pegs ended up stranded, unable to jump or be jumped. The number of pegs you left stranded on the board determined your score. Her best effort was so far 3, which the directions labeled typical. Leaving 2 was good, 1 was genius, 5 or more labeled you hopeless. While resetting the pegs for a fresh attempt, Kendra saw what she had been waiting for. Dale was walking along the perimeter of the yard with a pie tin. Setting the peg game on a table, she hurried to intercept him. Dale looked mildly distressed at her approach. "I can't let Lena see you talking to me like this," he murmured in low tones. "I'm supposed to put the milk out on the sly. I thought nobody knew you put the milk out." Right, see, your grandfather doesn't know, but Lena does. We try to keep it our secret. I was wondering what the milk tastes like. He looked nervous. Didn't you hear me last time? You could get shingles, scabies, scurvy. Scurvy? This milk is a bacterial stew. That's why the insects like it so well. I have friends who've tried milk fresh from the cow. They survived. I'm sure those were healthy cows, Dale said. These cows are... Never you mind. Idea is, this ain't just any milk. It's highly contaminated. I wash my hands good after even handling this stuff. So you don't think I should taste it? Not unless you're aiming for premature burial. Would you at least let me take it in... Would you at least take me in the barn to see the cows? See the cows? That would be breaking your grandfather's rules. I thought the point was that we might get hurt. I'll be fine if you're with me. Your grandfather's rules are your grandfather's rules. He has his reasons. I'm not about to go breaking them or bending them either. No? Maybe if you let me see the cows, I'll keep your secret about putting out the milk. Now, see, that's blackmail, and I won't stand for blackmail. I wonder what Grandpa will say when I tell him at dinner tonight. He'll likely say you ought to mind your own affairs. Now, with your leave, I have chores to do. She watched him walk away with the tin of milk. He surely had acted defensive and strange. There was definitely some mystery surrounding the milk, but all the talk about bacteria made her reluctant to try it. She needed a guinea pig. Seth tried to flip off the boulder into the pool, but landed on his back. He could never quite make it all the way around. He surfaced and stroked to the side to try again. Nice back flop, Kendra said, standing beside the pool. That one was for the blooper reel. Seth climbed out of the water. I'd like to see you do a better one. Where have you been? Thank you for the hydrate and the stretch. I appreciate it.